Here we are, another edition of Get Found
And be seen.
and Being Seen. That's right. Monty Armstrong, how are you doing?
I am fabtabulous, Mr. Carl Aline. How was your weekend?
It was crazy busy, but good. Here we are on Monday.
I think that
It
was
was
across the
full, though. It
board.
was like crazy full.
Yeah, crazy full, crazy busy. I think that was across the board.
Right.
Myself and other people I know have commented the same thing. Like this weekend seemed like it was a whole week.
Yeah.
Whole week packed right into a weekend.
Whole week packed into a weekend. It's funny. I've been saying that a lot too.
Yeah, and it's been more than one person I've heard say that too. So it's like, wow, that's pretty prevalent. So that's
Oh,
interesting.
man.
No, a whole week in a weekend. That sounds like maybe you're trying to rush through things.
Well, it's funny. Not really. I see how it could, but for me, it's just packed and full. Family stuff, business stuff, friend
Well, okay,
stuff.
let me rephrase that.
Hmm.
Maybe when your schedule's that full, you run the risk of rushing the process.
Ooh, I like that. And I see where you're going with that. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was some
Okay.
hint.
A hint for today's episode,
That's
which is
right.
about not rushing the process. Don't rush the process. The dreaded consequences of lack of preparation. That's a big one. And it's interesting because it's kind of not contrast to the things we've been talking about, but it's like flip side, the other coin, other side of the coin type of thing in
It's
some
the
ways.
pendulum swing.
Balance,
Right,
opportunity
right.
for
We're
balance.
it's like, okay, so we're talking about don't go too far this way.
Right.
Okay, well, now let's talk about don't go too far that way.
That's right. That is right. Lack of preparation. Have you ever been there, Monty, where you didn't feel prepared?
Even after trying to prepare.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
But
yeah.
there's plenty of times when it's taken for granted. It's, oh yeah, I know what I need to do. I'll deal with it. And then almost inevitably, oh, I didn't think of that. I didn't anticipate that happening. I wasn't prepared. Now, of course, you can't prepare for absolutely everything.
True.
But
Mm.
there's that balance. Let's see if we can prepare enough.
Prepare enough. I like that. It's funny. I think about this and I chuckle sometimes because coming from a performance background and even in the hip hop world, it's like there's an element where you do freestyle dance and you don't want to be prepared because that's the point of freestyle. You improv. But even with that, there's some kind of preparation because you have to have strategy.
I was just going to say, it's a different preparation, though. You're not preparing the content itself. You're preparing yourself to deliver the content.
Ooh, I like that. That's solid. Yeah, you're preparing yourself to deliver the content. And at any point, in any case, that is one of the goals, actually. You want to prepare yourself. And what does that look like for you?
I'm gonna dive into that. What you were just saying there about being improv and not preparing, and then discussing the preparing yourself. And that might be the rushing the process for that scenario where you don't want to prepare too much. Because like you said, it needs to be improv. If it's already prepared, it's not improv.
Mm-hmm.
But to
Right.
give the improv, you need to be ready. Now, some people are better at being ready than others. They can be ready on a drop of a hat.
Mm-hmm.
But myself, I need a little bit of mental preparation, get some things in their right spots, some settings dialed in, whatever it is. So that way I when it's time to improv, my brain is already, for a better term, my brain is already ready already. I don't have the content, but it's ready to go into that mode.
Right. Right. And there's a word I'm looking for. It,
Like we were just saying, if you
yeah,
don't prepare, you won't be ready for that mode.
that mode.
And you
Yeah,
might think, I don't need that mode. I'll when I get there, I'll do it.
right,
And
right.
if that's all you got, then work with it. But if you can put 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes in it. Here, there's a good question, Carl. How much time would you say preparing? How much time would be a good time to invest in preparing for something?
That's a good question. Depends on what it is.
Mhm.
Um, like I know for me, if I'm doing a big presentation, I like to prepare the content. First of all, do the research. A good percentage of the time, do the research. That could be 2 hours. That could be an hour. If you got some great tools, it might be less. It might be more. And you want to get familiar with it and make sure that you're knowledgeable. And I think it's important to have experience, even with the research you're researching, because with your experience, you could have that intuition to connect with what you research with. So that takes time. And then putting the content together, that takes time. And then practice. Now, that's another story. If you want to practice your presentation, if it's a big presentation, I like to say a good 20 hours, 30 hours, even 40 hours, which may seem like a lot, but 40 hours in a gamified manner where you include like the Pomodoro technique. We've talked about that, right? So for me, that's ideal. Now, does that happen every time? Does not happen every time. Sometimes I might have 2 hours to prepare. Now, with what I do, people sometimes ask me to do something on the spot. Sometimes people ask me to do something the night before. Sometimes, if I'm even emceeing, people are talking into my ear while I'm delivering. So it's like, wow, what do you do? And so that whole preparedness, part of the preparedness is preparing your mind. It's like you got to build your fortitude and your resilience with being able to be in that space. So what I talked about was the presentations. That's what I'd say for presentations, but it all depends on what it is.
Right.
So
I think what my mind was going to was that, what is it? And how much weight does it carry? And then how much experience or knowledge do I already know about it? So all those things are really going to affect how much preparation will be best for you.
Yeah.
And then again, there's all of those variables that you can't account for.
Yeah.
And so you got to kind of put those out of your mind, because that's going on to the other end of the over preparing part. So it's identifying those key factors. It's like, how long is the presentation? How much weight does it carry? How important is it, is what I'm saying there. So a presentation about, hey, here's a good way to barbecue a steak, versus, hey, here's how you're going to get yourself out of, financial crushing debt.
Right.
And then also the audience itself. Do I
Right.
have a diverse group of men and women and age brackets and that, or is this mainly
Right.
business people between this age group? Or there's a lot of factors there, and those are that research that you were talking about. Let me define some of these things that will help me and the point here is, let me admit, I don't need to think about this, I don't need to think about that. So there's a lot of stuff that you could spend a little extra time on, and you could save that time and invest it into the right area. Proper preparation.
Yeah. Wow, you gave me an idea, Monty. I think even with what I do in my programs, given that spectrum, clarifying, defining that spectrum for people so that they could see what's out there. I never thought about that for other people, actually. So that's a good thing to do, because you do have a wide range. You have what you were talking about. You also have the 60-second videos or short form videos. How do you prepare for that? And how long do you need to take? You might need to give a couple of points for 3 elements technically. For some may say, like the hook, story, offer. for example. And you don't, and I love how you talked about not being over prepared, because that's too much. Because it's funny, one thing I say is, we learn this in the entertainment world. It's like you learn it, you prepare, and then throw it out the window. So yeah. But we can agree that preparation is important for sure. And we
Yep.
don't want to rush the process.
Yep. That right amount. I think that the proper preparation, so that you're not rushing the process. You're not spending too much time. It's the return on investment. Why would you want to invest more time into your presentation? Well, what's the return? So you talk about the 60-second video. It's rough. Let's map that out. What if I spent an hour preparing for a 60-second video? Now, when we look at that metric right there, that doesn't sound like a very good return on an investment.
Right.
However, let's step back and look at the whole thing. What is the 60-second video going to do for us? If this is just content being put out into the world as one of the many pieces of content, then an hour to develop it is definitely not a really wise investment. If this 60-second video generates you $100,000 in sales in the next 40 days, I'd say that was a really good hour investment. So there's that weight, that importance I was talking about. What is this piece of content? What is this presentation, the 60-second video, whatever it is? What is this thing I'm preparing for? How much weight does it carry? And that's going to really affect how much preparedness you need to have. Because the 60-second video going out there just as one of the many pieces of content, if it doesn't have every little tiny thing checked off, it's okay. It's all right.
Right.
But if you're relying on it to make sales and to convert, then there that right off the bat says, hey, I should invest more time into that.
Right. And then you have organic versus running an ad. Organically, you don't also know exactly what's going to impact people. You have an idea, you have a framework, you don't know exactly what's going to make the impact.
Well, and there's another great way of identifying weight and importance. I'm spending money to put this content out. Oof. I better prepare for that. I'm not going to spend money to put out some janky thing.
Right.
So if you're not spending money on it, well, then it's not quite as important. If you put something out that's not quite up to snuff, then people won't see it and you won't repost it.
Right.
No big deal. But I spent $400 putting that thing out there and nobody clicked on it. Well, it's still a good lesson to learn, but a little more expensive than what you would have liked.
Right. You're forced to pay attention to it and what you're putting out there. Absolutely. So interesting. We got a spectrum.
We did. We actually went a little further into the what to do side of things than what we had originally mapped out. Let's go into what we were actually going to talk about. What happens to a person or to a project or a presentation when there's not the proper preparation?
Yeah. Lack of impact. Lack of impact's not fun, because your goal is you do want to impact people. You don't want to just go out there just to put something out and have no impact.
Because you didn't spend the time to find out what's important.
Right. You don't have the data.
Or the right angle. Maybe you have the data's there. But you got to come in from a different side.
Right. That's true. And that takes that self-awareness and audience awareness.
Right. So that's that preparing. How do I prepare this so that way when I deliver it, it's not just a package on the doorstep. It's a Christmas present with a bow and music playing. That's
right. So you can do that. You could do that online on video, or you can do that in personal presentations live. And what I love about it, Monty, is the time we live in now is you could always get feedback from people. So if your impact wasn't great, people will let you know.
Yep.
I find that very important. Also, diminished confidence. Your confidence. Oh, that's a punch in the gut. You do a presentation, You bomb, I've been there before, and then it just sucks your confidence away. It's the worst thing.
Well, I can see where it's not even where you bomb. It's you're just starting and you realize, oh, I'm not prepared. I'm not fully
Yeah.
prepared. I'm not prepared enough. I'm not properly prepared. And
Yeah.
then you're setting yourself up to bomb right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah,
But
absolutely.
even if you don't, you're just unhappy about it. It's and then like you said, at the end, you have less confidence than when you started.
Right. Right. So you want to definitely take the steps you got to take to make sure you could build your confidence as you're going. Like you mentioned, starting out, whether you've been doing it for a while, whether you've been doing it longer. I spoke to a friend the other day. He's been watching some of my videos, and he's been speaking for a long for years. And so we had a conversation on the public speaking, and he was just saying, I'm trying to take notes and pay attention to even what you share, Carl, because it can help me to step up my game with my public speaking. But whatever level you're at, you also want to strive to get better.
Absolutely. I wish I remembered the name of the pianist, but there was a famous musician who, after turning 90, he was still practicing, and he was in an interview, and they said, "You are one of the greatest players of all time. Why are you practicing every day?" And his response was, "Well, I think I'm starting to get good."
Yeah, I heard that.
So even the guy that everyone else is proclaiming as one of the best musicians in the world is realizing that if I practice, I get better.
Right. Right. Mastery.
But even when
Mastery.
you've mastered it,
Yeah.
mastery doesn't mean there's nothing left to learn.
It's continual.
Mastery just means that I can do this without spending any extra resources to make it happen.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you couldn't do it better or faster or easier or with more confidence
Or more fun.
or more
More
flashiness.
angles.
There's just all sorts of things that could always be increased or added or altered or experimented with. Because that's a lot of it is not, it's experimentation. And even in preparation.
Right.
Let me prepare for this thing. Well, last time I did it like this and it turned out like this. That's all right. I'd rather it turned out more like this. Well, what if I did it like this?
Right.
So there's that. I'm preparing, but I'm going to try something new.
Right. Yeah, I'll never forget. I was on a movie set, and I might have mentioned this to you before, but I was preparing to choreograph for a whole bunch of people. It's like 500 people. And I was like, okay, I better do this right or I'm fired. This actor's behind me. His name is Ken Jeong. He's a famous actor now. He just got his Hollywood star last year, actually.
Nice.
And just the way he was practicing blew me away. Because at first I was like, what's this guy doing? And he's practicing his lines so many different ways. And I'm like, that's why he's a master at what he does. He's having fun with it. I like that because for me, it's like you're your own individual party doing things in so many different ways and having fun with it. And it's continual. And that's such a momentum builder and a confidence builder, because if you can do that like that, you can do that anywhere at any time. And you're getting better all the time.
That's a multi-faceted activity, because that could be preparation.
Absolutely.
I'm preparing for this thing, and it's like I got to say this thing. Well, what if I said it like this? What if I said it like this? What if I said it like this? It's just say it a whole bunch of different times, and there's that mastery can still learn. Oh, hey, I just said it in a way that sounded really, really cool. I never said it like that before.
Exactly.
Now I'm going to see, and if everyone else thinks it's as cool as I do.
Right. But it's that self-feedback too. It's like
Right.
that, like people say that feedback, it's a feedback loop.
with many things, editing and other stuff, saying stuff out loud is a different trigger. So there's that segue a little bit, not segue, but a little sidestep in preparation. One thing to do to prepare is saying it out loud.
Yeah, that's a big deal because with coaching people, one of the hardest things to do is to do that, because you have that self, for lack of better words, that self judgment. Where it's like you don't want it to come out, but if you do, it accelerates your growth so much.
Well, that leads into another thought of, if you're rushing through the process, you're going to make more errors.
Yeah.
And so this saying stuff a whole bunch of different ways is a cool way of practicing and omitting errors, being prepared. You might not know how you're going to say it yet. You know what you're going to say. So by saying it a whole bunch of different ways, you've practiced what you were going to say. So whichever way you choose to say it, you at least now know, hey, I'm not going to mess up the words. I just said them 20 times in a row.
Right. Oof. I like that. I didn't know you were gonna go there. I like that.
I didn't know that either. That's the great thing about our discussions and only having talking points. We can come up with new thoughts and new angles.
That's a really good one. And one thing that's like, even with speaking, people do is, and I like to do too, is you record yourself. That's important. But what I learned even from the entertainment world is looking at my mistakes and seeing what I could create off of them, as long as I'm having fun. So looking at that error and see how I can be creative. It's kind of like what you said, but you have that fun spin on it as well. It's like falling down. It's like the comedy they used to have, like Benny Hill, or you remember those guys?
Chevy Chase.
And their mistakes, but they're hilarious. And they come out brilliant. Talk about a combination.
Now, in the cooking world, mistakes oftentimes turn out to be new recipes.
Right. So true. So true. So Monty, what about the reality of rushing through?
Like what the repercussions.
Repercussions.
You've already rushed through. Now what happens?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we've already talked about a little bit. You've made some errors. You've decreased your confidence. You haven't sent your messages as impactfully.
Right.
So that all of those things combined means that people are going to stop listening. People are going to find somewhere else to obtain the knowledge that you're trying to give out, because they were there in the first place to gain it. So if they're not resonating, they'll look elsewhere. So that's the first loss of clients and opportunities.
Right. So true. That definitely can happen. And now there's a balance with that too, is, you got to keep putting stuff out there and testing. And reality is not everyone's going to resonate with you, but the people who are meant to resonate with you, you want to be careful. That's a consequence of rushing that process.
Yeah, there's that balance. That's that
balance.
Part of it is a filter to filter out the people that aren't going to resonate with you.
Right.
But if you're filtering everybody, then you got a problem.
Right. Yeah. And that leads to damaged reputation. You don't want that. I want a good reputation.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting how that reputation is a side effect, not necessarily people are going to be pointing out and posting and saying, hey, that guy can't deliver worth beans. Hey, I didn't like the way he talked. Well, he said a lot of ums and stumbled all the time. They just aren't going to pay attention. And so the way your reputation is hurt is that it doesn't grow.
Right.
It might not be attacked and being dinged necessarily. So sometimes think damaged reputation is like, oh, well, they're going to lash out at me, or there's going to be bad reviews or that sort of thing.
Right.
But just by not padding your reputation with each step that you're going. So there's an interesting thing. As you are growing, if your reputation doesn't grow with you, that's similar to being damaged. It's like I had a reputation and now it's smaller. Well, if you
Right.
grow and your reputation doesn't, well, that doesn't happen very long.
Right. Right. That's so true. That's so true. I also think about the reputation of even for the individual. Because I like to think about subconsciously, what are we thinking? So I might get a bad reputation in someone's mind subconsciously. So if we're in the same vicinity again, they're not gonna trust. You know what I mean? They're not gonna gravitate towards not even just me, the idea of
Well,
what I'm
here's an
doing.
example for that reputation. You need help. You need help from somebody. You look around. Hey, that guy's wearing a police officer uniform. He has a good reputation. I'm
Right.
probably going to choose that guy if I need some serious help over other people.
Right.
So it comes down to also the right type of reputation. So if I'm looking for help for someone to, cut down my tree that's going to fall on my house, I'm not going to look for the police officer, but there's it's that reputation. So it's like, well, who has the right reputation? And
Right.
so it might not be that your reputation is damaged. It's just that it was never elevated to meet the criteria. So you are no longer considered. Hey, who can help me solve that problem? Well, I tried that guy. He didn't help.
Right. That's true. That's a good analogy.
One way of looking
One
at it.
way. One way. One way. And here's the thing too, which I had to be careful with, but I feel like I've had the experience where I've seen it through other artists. They were talented, and as far as missteps coaches and business people can make. People have that talent. Some people have the natural ability. Some people didn't have to work as hard as far as gaining skill set, but they had that moment where everything just crashed on them basically because they didn't prepare, because they didn't have the preparation. And so for me, I could identify with that, but for me, it's been important to make sure I do the extra work, to make sure I work hard, work like no one else, because I want to have a good reputation, but it takes work. For me, I realized I've had to work 3 times as hard as a lot of people I felt around me had the natural abilities, which is cool with me, but it built up a resilience in me.
Yeah, it's difficult to have comparisons sometimes. And I think that you're good at identifying this is a opportunity. I can learn from this rather than measuring against it.
Right.
Or that's not even right either, because you still have this great ability for measuring, raising the bar, but it's in a self-aware way where it's not I need to be better. It's I want to be more like.
Right.
And that's just an interesting distinction on that.
Ah, yeah, that's nuanced.
But on
Yeah.
the whole preparation, we talked about saying it a whole bunch of different times. And I think that falls into, because people oftentimes, people as in me, stumbling in articulation. I do it oftentimes with, there's a word I want.
Yeah.
And I can't quite think of it. I can come up with other words that are similar, but it's not the one I want. I'm not articulating myself the way I want to articulate myself. And that is just a lack of preparation. I didn't have the words I wanted to use in front of me. I was taking it for granted that I knew what I wanted to say.
Yeah. I could definitely identify with that. I've felt both ends of the spectrum where I felt that, but I've also just been so excited. I'd stumble.
Sure.
you know,
Sure.
and then, using that element as an ally for myself where, okay, it's a natural thing. However, I want to make sure that I'm prepared enough where I'm not stumbling. But even if I do, it's just part of my natural flow too. You know what I mean? There's a nuance with it.
Yeah, yeah, and falling back onto the Kin Young thing and saying it in a bunch of different ways, locking
Hmm.
in the words, also locking in, wow, that didn't sound that well, or that was difficult for me to pronounce. That's another great indication. So
Right.
there's another aspect of that. Let me say it a whole bunch of different ways, so that way I don't stumble on what I want to say, and I can identify, hey, this word is great. I'm going to say it like this. Because if I
Right.
use this other word, extremely awesome is great. But if I use excellent, I don't know. There it is. I'm not prepared. I don't know what words to use. And that's the perfect example. Well, if you thought about it and recited it ahead of time, you have already discovered, hey, it sounds great when I say it like this.
Right. Absolutely. Man, it's funny. It so reminds me of recording music. It is so much like that, because you're thinking about the tone and what you want to say and how you want to say it. And do you want to say it, with the upswing, or do you want to say it with authority, which is more like say it with authority or say it with authority? There's small nuances.
Right.
And I enjoy, it's very fun to play around with it. Even referring to that example that I shared with you with Ken John, that lesson is taking me a long way. So how cool.
Yeah. It's just interesting how it has revealed itself as a technique that fits into many aspects of preparation.
Yes. Yes, indeed. So this whole thing, we could agree that preparation is important.
Absolutely. If you rush through the preparation, you're
Hmm.
risking stumbling. Yeah, your ideas cannot flow out the way you wanted them to. There's something that has happened to me where I get excited, get ahead of myself, and have to backtrack and cover something I missed or skipped or forgot.
Right.
Which, okay, it's real. I moved on, but there was still that little bit of confidence that got chipped off there. It's like, oh man,
Mm,
you could have had that better. You could have nailed that.
right. Right. That's true. And then also, one thing we didn't talk about in the notes too is the importance of bouncing back. Because when those times come, you got to give yourself, I like to say, grace and poise. You got to move with grace and you got to move with poise. Because when those mistakes come, how will you rebound from that? Give yourself grace and move with poise. All right, you made the mistake. Time to bounce back. Time to switch gears, which is a really
My
good thing.
mode for that is, hey, great to know for next time.
There you go. There
As
you
long as you
go.
can tuck it away and learn from it, it wasn't a loss.
Hmm. So we talked about these challenges too, Monty. And there's also, stumbling with articulation that we talked about, disjointed flow of ideas. Oh, I can relate to that. And also the audience engagement, inadequate audience engagement. When we're not prepared, we're not going to be able to engage the way we would desire to engage with the audience. And these are important.
Here's an
So,
interesting aspect to that. I'm not sure if you were contemplating in that statement. Pardon me. So, if the audience isn't resonating with you, no, let me back up from that. The audience is resonating and has a reaction, but you're unprepared. You didn't realize that you were going to get any reaction or that reaction. And so now you don't know how to proceed because you thought they would be amiable with the idea and then they're not, or you thought they would be sympathetic and they're not, or so it's, oh, I wasn't prepared for that kind of engagement. So you were talking about where there would be lack of engagement, and I'm pointing out it just was a different kind of engagement.
True.
So
Yeah, I could definitely identify with that.
The naysayers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got to be somewhat prepared for, well, what if someone calls you out? What if someone contradicts you?
Right. So true.
You need to be prepared for whatever that is. Some people, maybe it's a rebuttal. Maybe some people, it's a sidestep and a move past. But if you're not prepared, you're going to stumble.
So
that's
true.
Exactly what that situation was hoping for.
Right. I like those opportunities, to be honest, Monty, because it gives me opportunity to ask them questions or ask the audience questions as well. But I smiled when you said that, because for me, I've found times where what I thought I said was very simple. Didn't deserve any engagement, not because it was because of me or anything. It was just I made a simple point.
It wasn't a profound statement.
It wasn't a profound statement, but that was the very thing that resonated with the audience, and they gave a response, and I was just like, "What? What do I do next?"
Right? Yeah. Here's this thing. I don't really think it's any big deal. Wow, that's so cool. Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
You know,
but there's that thing about the improv too. You can't improv if you've already pre-planned it. So in this circumstance, it's not a, well, what do I do if they react this way?
Mm-hmm.
It's just a, what do I do if they don't react the way I thought they would? What's my plan B?
Right.
If I do it like this and everybody does what I expect, I'm going to move on like this. If it doesn't move on like I expect, I'll shift over to this instead.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. It's not a, if they say this, I'll do this. If they say this, I'll do this. If they say this, I'll do this. Whoa. Now you're going into the world of overwhelm.
Right. And you might not be as quick. And you know, people say, you know, hey, he's quick-witted. You may not be that way. That's okay. You know, but that is something to consider and think about. Because for me, I know I might laugh, or not even a nervous laugh. I might smile or laugh and say, hey, that's a good point.
I can't remember who it was that, I'm going to have to look that up now. The response, I don't remember if it was a comedian or who it was, but the response was just, good to know.
Good to know.
Good to know.
Yeah. Absolutely. So Monty, today's episode, I liked it. How would we keep it simple?
Wow. Don't rush the process. That sounds pretty simple unto itself. But what exactly does that mean? I think that we tie it with the last episode about taking action and building momentum.
Right.
And we marry it, and we make this recipe of balance together there. And we want to prepare. Don't rush the process. Prepare, but don't get lost in it.
Mm-hmm.
You're preparing the framework so that you have a direction to go in. You can improv a little bit. You don't have to prepare that far.
Right.
Although if that's the type of thing, maybe you're in a presentation where it's, I just need to memorize this baby and recite this thing start to finish. Well, then your preparation is going to be a little different. You're definitely going to want to be using the Ken Jeong method there and practice that thing out. Spend, maybe there's a mathematical equation. For every hour of presentation, you need 4 hours of preparation, or I don't know what that might be. And again, it depends. What's the weight of the presentation? What's the outcome? All these different factors. But there could be something there saying, hey, I'm going to be doing this. I need to set aside X amount of time. Right. And that might be an easy way to schedule it out.
Right.
But here I am going deep in the keep it simple. Keep it simple. Prepare. Don't over prepare.
Prepare. Don't over prepare. I love it. I'd say the process is not easy, but it's an opportunity to get to know yourself. It's an opportunity to practice self-awareness. Have fun with it too. That's my simple.
There you go. Like it.
There it is. Boom. And so, Monty, you mentioned overwhelm. So if someone was watching this episode and they want to understand how to become unwhelmed in their business endeavors, where can they find you? Because you're the man to help them out with that.
Well, the overwhelm, underwhelmed, unwhelmed, whelmed topic I like to go into, and you can find me at montyarmstrong.com and look at all things unwhelmed.
Oh, there it is. Whoop. Imperfect action. There you go.
Or you could go to unwhelmed.com and get my book. It doesn't matter.
It's a big deal.
But on the other side, we were talking about if you're not prepared, you're going to lose confidence. Well, there's a ton of ways you're going to lose confidence. And there's a ton of ways that even when you're confident, you can boost your confidence.
Right.
If someone wanted to learn any of those things, where would be a great resource for them to go?
You can go. If you want to boost your confidence, you can go to carleileen.com/books and you can get my book, Confidence on Camera. I didn't even mean to say that, but hey, it's perfect.
There's a little improv for you.
Matter of fact, the last few episodes we've done have been on chapters in this book. So get the book.
Indeed.
Get yourself some improv.
This was one of the chapters. Don't rush the process. The book goes into a lot more details about specific steps to take and specific ways to avoid underpreparedness.
Right. And we want to help you to be prepared. So check it out. Till then, we'll be back. Same bat time, same bat social media channel. A little improv. And you've been listening to I was about to say you've been listening to the sounds. You've been watching. Now I'm on stage in the band right now.
That's right. That's okay.
You've been watching another episode.
Get found, be seen.
Get found and be seen. That's right, Monty. Talk to you later.
Have a good one, guys.
Have a good one.